It's not quiet. It's compressed. This isn't peace, it's pressure before the crack. From April 21st to 27th, the sky doesn't erupt. But beneath its silence, something is stretching. Your body may feel calm. Your days might look ordinary. But inside, there's rumbling. A strange tension without cause. A restlessness that can't be soothed. That's not you being dramatic, that's alignment preparing to shift. This is not a break. It's the build-up before something opens. Like breath held too long. Like a truth trying to arrive through the cracks of your conditioning. The surface may stay still, but your spirit knows, something's about to give. For the vision awaits its appointed time, though it linger, wait for it. Habakkuk 2 verse 3. This is that appointed time. Not the explosion, the edge before it. Not the revelation, the moment before it lands. In this video, we're stepping into that tension. And by the end, you'll know why waiting doesn't mean nothing's happening, it means everything is being rearranged behind the veil. April 21st speaks in codes, not commands. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives with a lock clicking quietly into place, and if you're listening closely, you'll feel it. Not through the years, but through your inner field. Your body may be still. Your thoughts quiet. But underneath, something final is being written. The moon moves through Shravan today, a lunar space that sanctifies listening. Not just external sound, but spiritual signal. What lands in your field today might seem insignificant at first. A single line in a conversation. A strange moment of silence that holds more weight than words. A repeated phrase you can't shake. These are not accidents. This is the universe whispering with surgical precision. And as this lunar current flows, something more ancient happens in the background. Saturn meets Rahu. A convergence that blends structure with disruption, history with karma, consequence with redirection. Saturn is the weight of time. Rahu is the unpredictability of fate. When they meet, something inside your timeline realigns, not softly, but permanently. You may feel that something is closing, yet you can't name what. Or that something is about to begin, but you have no idea how. This is the space between timelines. The transition doesn't shout. It seals. And the stillness that follows may feel heavy, even hollow, but it isn't absence. It's divine placement. What you once called delay is now destiny being finalized behind the veil. And in this kind of stillness, what you allow in becomes everything. A belief. A decision. A subtle agreement with an old pattern. If you let it enter now, it becomes the seed of your next season. Saturn is not interested in what you wish for. Saturn engraves what you tolerate. And Rahu? It will run wild with whatever structure you unconsciously set. So be intentional. Let today remain quiet if it needs to. But don't let it become numb. This is not passive silence. This is karmic silence, the kind that carries weight. The kind that only those who are truly present will recognize. You don't have to act. You don't have to decide. But you do have to listen. Not for a voice. For a shift. Let only what's aligned sink into your soil. Let everything else pass through like smoke. Because what you receive in this stillness, even unconsciously, will shape the architecture of what's coming. Not just for weeks, but for the long arc ahead. This day does not ask you to perform. It asks you to perceive. And once it passes, something in your atmosphere will never be the same, not because of what you did, but because of what you finally stopped inviting in. April 22nd doesn't bring clarity. It brings noise, not loud, external chaos, but something subtler, stranger. The kind of static that wraps around your nervous system and clouds the edges of thought. It's not confusion exactly. It's something harder to describe, like a thick emotional fog that won't name itself. The moon remains in Capricorn, still under the weight of what Saturn and Rahu sealed the day before. But today, it brushes up against older shadows, the echo of Pluto's intensity, the lingering trace of Mars' heat buried deep in the 8th house terrain. It's not a clean energy. It's not even sharp. It's murky. Charged. But dulled at the same time. And if you feel numb, exhausted, or inexplicably disconnected, know this: you're not falling apart. You're undergoing a quiet unraveling. This isn't depression. It's psychic overload. Your system is trying to catch up with what it just witnessed, not externally, but internally. And the weight of what you can't articulate is real. You may wake up with no motivation. No hunger for engagement. Everything might feel serious, flat, strangely out of sync. You try to ground, but your body won't anchor. You try to focus, but your mind drifts sideways. That's not weakness. That's a signal. Something is being shed. You may feel like quitting something today, a relationship, a project, a role, a version of yourself. You may feel like walking out, cutting cords, disconnecting for good. But pause. That urge isn't wrong, but it's not complete. What's rising hasn't finished speaking yet. If you act too soon, you may misread release as rejection. You may call discomfort failure when it's actually transformation. This is emotional shedding. Not a breakdown, a clearing. And like all forms of detox, it doesn't feel euphoric at first. It feels heavy. It feels like resistance. It feels like wanting to disappear. But what's actually happening is that the energy you've been storing, the weight you've been pretending was yours to hold, is beginning to slip. And your system doesn't yet know how to live without it. Let the fog move through. Don't demand meaning from it. Don't weaponize the heaviness into self-judgment. This moment isn't asking you to fix anything. It's asking you to stay long enough for the buried truth to rise on its own. Not forced. Not filtered. Just revealed. There will be things that come up today that don't make sense. Emotions with no context. Thoughts that feel like echoes from someone else's memory. Energetic fragments floating through your field, pulling old frequencies to the surface. Let them pass. You don't need to name them. You don't need to explain them. You only need to not interrupt their exit. Because what's trying to leave you today doesn't need closure. It needs space. And you give it that by not reacting. By not running. By not trying to diagnose what doesn't belong anymore. So if your spirit feels off, your mind foggy, your heart strangely detached, don't panic. You're not going backwards. You're making space for a frequency your body hasn't fully adjusted to yet. You're making space for something clearer, lighter, more honest to arrive, but only after this static runs its course. Let what's rising finish its message. And when it's done, you won't need to ask what it meant. You'll feel what it cleared. April 23rd breathes differently. After the weight and static of the days before, this one doesn't press on your chest, it steps back. Give space. But don't mistake the spaciousness for peace. The air may feel lighter, but something is still shifting underneath. The moon has now entered Aquarius, and you can feel it in the way your emotions take a step back from your body. You're still here, technically. Still thinking. Still functioning. But part of you has moved slightly to the side, watching, analyzing, scanning the field instead of participating in it. It's the classic Aquarian detachment. Not because you're cold, but because you need space from the fire. The past few days were full of karmic closure and emotional shedding. Now, the sky opens a window. It gives you altitude, objectivity, a chance to breathe above the storm, but the cost of that distance is feeling like you're not quite in your own skin. You might go through the motions and hear your own voice like it belongs to someone else. You might notice yourself pausing mid-thought, realizing you don't quite know what you feel anymore. That's not numbness. That's air displacing fire. This detachment is a natural part of the process. The body can't stay in grief forever. The spirit can't stay cracked open without time to reset its structure. But this distance is not automatically healing. It has two faces, clarity and denial, and today you'll be asked to choose between them without realizing you're doing it. It's easy to confuse stepping back with checking out. To call it rest when it's actually retreat. To name it insight when it's really escape. Today is excellent for perspective. You'll be able to see the patterns clearly, the roles you've played, the cycles you've repeated, the truths that have followed you even when you tried to outrun them. Aquarius clears the fog from the mind, but it also pulls emotion into the background. That can be useful. It can also be dangerous. If you use the distance to witness your healing, it becomes integration. If you use it to pretend you're done feeling, it becomes suppression. So give yourself space. But stay aware. Let the detachment offer breath, not erasure. Let the high ground give you vision, not excuses. There is still something finishing its work in you. Don't float away before it completes. Today may feel like an intermission, but your presence is still needed. You don't have to dive deep, but you do have to remain in the room. You're not wrong for feeling distant. You're not broken for wanting clarity. But don't confuse distance for completion. Let the pause help you rest, not forget. Let the sky lift you, but don't let it carry you so far you stop hearing what's still true in your chest. Because detachment can give you space to heal, or space to hide. And only your awareness decides which one it becomes. April 24th doesn't approach like a thought. It arrives like a flash. Not through logic, but through sensation. The moon now brushes Neptune's edge in Pisces, a current of water meeting mist. And when this kind of energy moves through your field, it doesn't ask for understanding. It dissolves the question entirely and leaves something you can feel, but not name. You might wake up today with a sentence in your mind you didn't put there. A fragment of a dream that refuses to fade, as if it carried a truth too important to forget. You might walk into a room and feel the energy shift before anyone says a word. The veil is thinner now, not theatrically, not for show, but just enough to let something sacred slip through. You don't need to try. In fact, trying will only cloud it. You need to tune in. Be still enough to catch what doesn't announce itself. This is a day of intuitive strike. Visions. Messages. Sudden clarity that comes not from deduction, but from resonance. It's not about figuring things out. It's about knowing, instantly, that you already do. The kind of knowing that bypasses intellect and lands straight in your bones. And because the atmosphere is so porous, art becomes portal. Music doesn't just sound beautiful today, it speaks in symbols. Poetry doesn't just describe, it unlocks. A prayer whispered in stillness might feel more powerful than hours of conversation. Your hands may find themselves drawn to write, to move, to create without plan. That's not coincidence. That's spirit moving through you in its native tongue. Today's clarity might feel strange at first. Unexplainable. Even impractical. But that doesn't make it false. What lands today may not make sense to the mind, but it will make sense to the soul. Don't be quick to dismiss what feels too soft, too dreamy, too unprovable. You are being handed threads. And if you follow them with trust instead of proof, you'll arrive at something essential. But don't try to capture it all. Some messages today are meant to be felt, not stored. Some insights come like lightning, not to be held, but to remind you that light exists. Let them pass through. Let the moment wash over you, even if it doesn't give you something to hold. Because what it awakens in you, that's the real message. Today isn't linear. It's lyrical. And the more you surrender to its rhythm, the more it reveals what was always waiting behind the noise. April 25th doesn't speak in logic. It moves in waves. With the moon now in Pisces, sensitivity doesn't just increase, it spills. The boundary between you and everything else dissolves. You don't just feel your emotions today. You feel everything. Energy from rooms you're not in. People you haven't spoken to in years. Echoes from timelines you thought you left behind. This isn't emotional confusion. It's spiritual permeability. Dreams may linger longer this morning, pressing at the edge of your consciousness like hands trying to open a door. You may not remember details, but you'll remember the feeling. That ache in the chest. That image that won't let go. Something sacred passed through you last night, and even if your mind can't capture it, your soul already absorbed it. You woke up different, but without a reason your rational mind can trace. You may find yourself overwhelmed today, not by one event, but by the accumulation of subtle impressions. A stranger's tone. A shift in someone's eyes. A song that pulls tears from nowhere. This isn't weakness. It's access. The veil is soft. And what you feel isn't just your story, it's the resonance of every version of you you've ever been. And maybe even the ones you haven't yet met. There's a tenderness in the atmosphere that asks for reverence. Not retreat. Not withdrawal. Just space. Space to sit in what you're sensing without explaining it. Without forcing it into language. The Pisces moon doesn't want translation. It wants presence. And presence requires solitude, not because you need to shut the world out, but because you need a container soft enough to let everything move through without resistance. A place where your nervous system isn't forced to interpret, only receive. This is not the day to armor up. This is not the day to fake strength. This is the day to feel how thin the boundary really is between you and everyone else. And to recognize that this sensitivity isn't something you outgrow. It's something you're being initiated into. It's the soul reminding you that divinity doesn't just speak through thunder. It speaks through tenderness. Through intuition. Through your ability to feel what doesn't belong to you and still bless it on the way out. Let today become sacred by not rushing it. Write more slowly. Walk without destination. Let music replace logic. Let scent, memory, atmosphere tell you what time it is. You are not broken for needing quiet. You are not behind for needing space. You are simply more open now, and openness, when not managed with grace, is exhausting. So today, let yourself be porous. Let yourself write what doesn't make sense yet. Let yourself sit in silence not because you're broken, but because your system is integrating something too sacred to rush. Journal what rises, even if it feels strange. Let your hands become translators for what your mind can't yet hold. You're not unraveling. You're remembering, through sensation, not language. You are not too much today. You are wide open on purpose. And in that openness, there is divine intelligence. You were never meant to harden in order to survive. You were meant to learn how to hold the flood without drowning in it. Because what moves through you today might not be yours. But your ability to feel it, and still return to yourself with softness, is proof that your spirit is evolving. This isn't fragility. This is grace in its rawest form. April 26th is not here to speak softly. It's here to penetrate. To pierce through the fog with the kind of clarity that doesn't ask for proof. With the moon moving through Purva Bhadrapada, a nakshatra known for its intense spiritual fire, and now conjunct Neptune, today is not casual. This is not about floating in mystical energy. This is about being cracked open by it. The veil is nearly gone. What normally feels invisible might feel uncomfortably close. You may sense people's emotions before they speak. You may enter a room and instantly feel the temperature of the energy without knowing why. You may feel pressure in your chest or tightness behind your forehead, not pain, but density. That's your field responding to the invisible. Your nervous system adjusting to the heightened frequency. Dreams last night may have been strange, vivid, hard to explain. You might have woken with a phrase echoing in your head, or a mood that didn't match your environment. That's not coincidence. That's contact. Something or someone beyond the veil tried to reach you. And whether or not you remember it, your soul received the message. But this energy doesn't tolerate distraction. It doesn't want noise. If you fill your day with meaningless conversation, endless scrolling, or overstimulation, the clarity available to you will slip through your fingers. Not because it wasn't offered, but because the channel was too clouded to receive. This isn't a time to be plugged into everyone else's signal. This is a time to protect your own. You may feel overwhelmed by your own intuition today. As if the signals are too loud. As if too much is arriving at once and your body doesn't know where to store it. That's okay. You're not broken. You're sensitive. And sensitivity isn't weakness, it's intelligence. The soul speaks loudest when the world gets quiet. And today, your inner world is roaring. So pause. Breathe. Close your eyes longer than you usually would. Step away from the noise, even if just for a few minutes. You don't need to figure out what's coming through. You just need to honor that something is. Light a candle. Say a name you haven't said in a while. Sit with the pressure in your body instead of running from it. The sensation is not random. It's guidance trying to enter through the places that aren't defended. This is not a day for explanation. It's a day for reverence. When the energy gets this thin, when the veil parts this much, your job is not to translate it into something neat. Your job is to listen. Not with your ears. With your chest. With your gut. With the space behind your eyes where spirit touches form. The clarity you're waiting for is already present, but it doesn't arrive in words. It arrives in waves. Let them move through you without forcing meaning. The meaning will land when your body is still enough to hold it. April 27th is a quiet ending. Not the kind that closes with applause or declarations, but the kind that finishes gently, like a final breath before rest. The moon is preparing to leave Pisces, and with that, the last currents of emotional heaviness begin to loosen. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Just enough. This is the end of a long internal purge. The final release of stories, echoes, fragments you didn't realize you were still holding. The kind of release that doesn't need language, only exhale. And today, if you've been walking through this week feeling full to the brim with emotion, with visions, with psychic residue, this is the moment it begins to empty out. But endings, even sacred ones, rarely feel clean. You may still experience flashes of intensity. Mood swings that rise unexpectedly. Tears that come out of nowhere. A memory that surfaces with full emotional weight only to dissolve minutes later. This is how the release moves, not through logic, but through waves. Sudden and unpredictable. But each wave makes the body lighter, the chest clearer, the spirit softer. You don't need to assign meaning to every rise and fall today. The work is already being done behind the scenes of your consciousness. You're not being asked to solve anything anymore. Only to let go. And in that surrender, you'll begin to feel the quiet return of something you didn't know had been missing, peace. This isn't the peace of resolution. It's the peace that arrives when the body no longer needs to carry what was never meant to stay. The nervous system eases. The breath deepens. The inner dialogue softens. And in that spaciousness, a whisper emerges, the kind that only comes when the noise has finally settled. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He restores my soul. Psalm 23 verses 2-3. That's the kind of restoration today holds. Not through striving, but through surrender. Not through effort, but through allowing. You're not being asked to climb anymore. You're being invited to lie down. To let the ground hold you while your spirit recalibrates. Because restoration doesn't always look like rising. Sometimes it looks like finally having nothing left to fight. And in that stillness, you might realize something, not intellectually, but energetically. You might feel the truth of what needs to be released. A pattern. A connection. A self-concept. Something you've kept alive long past its expiration date. And in the softness of this moment, you may finally be ready to let it go. Not angrily. Not ceremonially. Just quietly. The way trees let go of leaves when the season has shifted, without announcement, without regret. There may be no grand sense of closure. No final chapter. No perfect send-off. Just a quiet knowing that something inside you has reached its natural end. And that's enough. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to explain it to anyone. You only have to honor it with your willingness to move on, even if no one else understands why. Today is not about action. It's about atmosphere. About listening for what's no longer speaking. About recognizing when the silence means something's complete. If you feel called to be alone, honor that. If you feel the need to cry for no reason, let it happen. If you feel the impulse to delete something, walk away from something, or leave something unfinished, that might be your spirit taking care of you in ways your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Don't chase the drama of a loud ending. Don't search for validation in closure. The truth of today is this: when it's truly over, you won't need noise. You'll just feel lighter. And that's how you'll know. Not because the world claps. Not because someone gives you permission. But because the storm inside you has passed, and the space it leaves behind feels clear in a way it hasn't for a long time. Let that be enough. Let it be sacred. This was never about what happened outside. It was about what you finally allowed to shift inside, the quiet decisions, the unspoken goodbyes, the soft shedding of identities no one ever saw. If you made it through this week, it's not because nothing happened. It's because you stayed present while everything inside you rearranged. You held your ground while timelines collapsed. You stayed awake through the ache of becoming. That's not survival. That's sacred endurance. This week was not for the world to witness. It was for the parts of you that no longer belong. The ones that left without noise. The ones that faded out in silence, because their time was up. This was the week of internal separation, soul-level editing. No dramatic conclusions. Just a slow erosion of what no longer resonates. So don't wait for signs. Don't demand proof. You're already different. Feel it in the way your breath lands deeper. Feel it in the way your body no longer flinches at things that once defined you. That's the shift. Not loud. But irreversible. And what rises in May will only be as powerful as what you let die quietly this week. Let that truth settle in your bones. Let it remind you that the most important transformations never happen on the outside. They happen in the stillness. In the moments no one sees. In the silence you learned how to hold. And in that silence, you return to yourself. Fully. Finally. Quietly.